Hello everybody and a big welcome to a cEDH TV gameplay. Now, as I mentioned before in an older video, we had some problems with recording the stuff, so a lot of audio got missed. And some behind the scenes information, we usually play a lot of games on the same day, so a lot of videos lost their audio. But hey, you get to listen to my beautiful voice narrating the match, and it will be a fast-paced game instead. And those have value too, they are just a little bit different feeling, but we hope to record soon again. We have scheduled a date, and once we hope that nothing will turn out bad with audio next time. Now the starting player is Felix, playing Silius, Ren Seeker Adept, with his best friend Rograk, son of Rogra, basically Grixis Rogsi. Me, I'm playing my favorite commander Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. This is the please don't board wipe version, where I play an enormous high amount of creatures. Chanel is playing her favorite commander Magda, Brazen Outlaw, while Pontus is playing his Witherbloom the Balancer, a new commander, a dragon, that will give affinity to instant and sorceries for creatures, which means that he can cast very big expensive X spells by paying almost nothing. And this enables a lot of different cool combos, and spoilers, he won the previous match, so let's see if he can make a second attempt of victory here. Now as always, link in the description below of the video for all decklists if you wanna take a look at them by detail. And with that, let's start off the match. The Sisay player Mons has a pre-game effect, Gemstone Caverns, pitching a land, Hideaway White Land. Then Felix draws a card for turn and starts. He plays City of Brass, then a Lion-Side Diamond, a Dark Ritual, losing 1 life. He looks around at the board state, Sisay, Magda, Witherbloom. He doesn't pass priority, it resolves, and he gains 3 black mana. He uses 2 for an Arcane Signet. And then he uses the last remaining black mana and the Arcane of Signet to cast a Talisman of Dominance. He casts Daemonic Consultation, losing 1 life. Now he's holding priority and sacrifices Lion's Diamond in response. Now he was already hellbent, gaining 3 black mana floating, and obviously naming Necropotence. And it's on the top for free.
cEDH! Woo!
And apparently he's dead.
Let's go! Woo!
He exiles his entire library, he is hellbent, he has 3 black floating mana, he casts Rograk and passes the turn with a happy face. Sisay Mons draws a card for turn. Land drop Scalding Tarn. Mons finds a tropical island, taps it to cast a Soul Ring and 1 white to play generic, and casts Sisay Pass. Magda Chanel draws a card for turn. She plays a mountain, taps it for a Soul Ring, taps that one, casting a free mascot. This is an artifact changeling, meaning artifact dwarf, very key for Magda, and then pass to Pontus. He plays forest, taps it for an elvish mystic. Then turn goes to Rogsi, who doesn't have a library, draws nothing, and goes Lobotomy dead. So turn goes to Mons, who will untap and draw a card. Land drop Bloodstained Mire, sacrificing the Bloodstained Mire, finding a bad land, and then cast a Deathrite Shaman, attacking with Sisay at Pontus for 2, who takes it and then pass. Magda untaps and draws a card for turn. Land drop Survivor's Encampment, that it can tap creatures, which is great for Magda, that you can tap Magda at the turn she comes into play and generate treasures immediately. Chanel then casts Magda, the commander, by channeling a mana through the free mascot. Combat, Magda sends the mascot, the changeling dwarf, at Mons, who takes 3 damage, and Magda generates a treasure. Then casting Spark Mage. This is a 1 red mana, 1/1 dwarf. And then passes the turn to Pontus, who will untap and draw a card for turn. Land drop Phyrexian Tower. Pontus taps 1 green, is Elvish Mystic, sacrifice it to Phyrexian and cast a culling ritual. Board wiping everything. This is going to, well, generate an enormous amount of mana for Pontus. But in response, Magda taps down the dwarf, sacrifice the artifact, and also generate another artifact to cast Return the Favor. The goal here is to, well, can't prevent the board wipe from happening, but can prevent the enormous amount of mana Pontus is going to gain. So in the end, hurting him a tiny bit. Pontus decides to reveal, but all of this stopped, and it was an Arbor Elf. That was all that he was apparently, according to him, going to do from that. But here, the board wipe happens, a lot of stuff dies, Magda generates an enormous amount of black and green mana that Magda can't use, and Pontus passes the turn to Sisay, who untaps, draws a card. Sisay plays a Savannah, nothing really to do, smacks at Pontus for 2, passes the turn. Magda untaps and draws a card. Magda plays Magda the Horde Master, Magda, and then passes to Pontus, who untaps, draws a card, plays a Wooded Foothills, then casts a Arbor Elf. He cracks his Wooded Foothills, losing 1 life, finding a Dryad Arbor. This is a genius card for Pontus because it is a mana dork, taps for mana, but it's also a creature, so it's reducing the casting cost of anything from affinity creatures that his commander generates. And then he passes the turn to Sisay, who untaps and draws a card for turn. Land drop, Plains. Green, green, and 3 more mana for a Seedborn Muse. A dominating piece on this board state. As Mons is ahead, looking at the board state, there are 2/2 and 2 1/1s, and they might actually perform seppuku to prevent Sisay from doing her thing, as she is a 2/2. Therefore, Mons decides to pass turn for their shared untap. Well, not shared card draw, Magda gets to draw a card on her own, because Mons is very generous. Magda plays a Vexian Bubble. Then Magda passes the turn where Mons activates Sisay. Mons finds a Ragavan, and then the turn goes to Pontus, and Mons shared untap where Pontus gets to draw a card. He plays a Swamp. Pontus casts a Dark Ritual, gaining 3 black mana. Then he casts his Commander. It has affinity for creatures, meaning it's easier to cast. Pontus passes the turn, and Mons activates Sisay in response, finding Lavinia Azorus Renegade. This is a pretty good creatures versus Pontus deck, because he's reducing the casting cost of his enormously expensive spells, but he only has 3 lands in play, making it a little bit tricky to go around Lavinia. Then Mons untaps and takes his turn, drawing a card for turn, and begins with activating Sisay. Mons finds a Darevi, and ETB taps down this dwarf, removing blockers from that player's position. Then combat. Now, Darevi can't attack, but so can all of these 4 cute guys. Everything smacking at Magda for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 damage total. In response, Magda sacrifices Vexian Bubble to draw a card. Takes 12 damage, and Sisay will untap all of her lands, kinda, and generate a treasure token from Ragavan, and flipping a red removal that we're not gonna cast. Instead, sacrificing the treasure to activate Sisay 1 more time. Finding the land Cradle, tapping that for a Noble Hierarch. Then pass turn to the shared untap step. And before Magda gets to draw a card, as Sisay has untapped, we are going to activate 1 more time, finding the magical unicorn. And now we have the 3 card combo assembled. So we have Emil the Blessed, Cradle, and Darevi. We tap Cradle to activate Emil, flickering Darevi, untapping Cradle, generating infinite mana. With the Gemstone Caverns, we can from infinite mana convert into all kinds of colored mana, and with a Sisay, we can activate, finding a Mount Doom. Now with infinite flickers of Darevi, and infinite mana, we can untap the Mount Doom infinitely, dealing infinite damage to all of the opponents. So Sisay won a glorious victory all on her own. There were no other great inputs in this match whatsoever. We have totally forgot the demonic consultation and the culling ritual. In any case, thanks for watching guys, and see you in the next one.